Well, friendships are essential to human happiness. In recent years, social scientists have conducted vast amounts of research that reveal just how critical friendships are to happiness. They found that the deeper relationships a person has, the happier he or she will be. One study, for example, found that joining a group that meets just once a month produces the same happiness gain as doubling your income. Another study indicated that people who have more friends have lower stress levels and longer lives. Research also found that the daily activities most associated with happiness are, generally speaking, people-oriented, people-centric. Things like socializing after work, having dinner with friends. The daily activity most injurious or harmful to your happiness is commuting. And it's no wonder, because commuting, not only do you have to mess with traffic, but it is a singular affair. Typically, it's just you. Well, researchers have also learned that the professions that produce the greatest level of happiness in the workers are also very people-centric. Jobs like being a corporate manager, being a hairdresser, being a healthcare provider, because they're regularly interacting with numbers of people. The professions that are more individual-focused, like operating heavy machinery, those are correlated with the lowest levels of happiness. Not that those jobs are bad, they just tend to produce lower levels of happiness because you're isolated. Social psychologist Roy Baumeister, he summarizes the research this way. Whether someone has a network of good relationships or is alone in the world is a much stronger predictor of happiness than any other objective predictor. He says, listen, if you're alone or you're with people, that will determine in large part if you are a happy, satisfied person. This has nothing to do with introvert, extrovert. The research doesn't focus on that. It's simply concluding the more relationships a person has of substance, the happier is that person. You see, Solomon would have heard all of those studies and said, of course. No surprise. See, Solomon well understood the value and indeed the priority of social relationships, which is why he has so much to say about friendship in the book of Proverbs. Because he knows friendships are important to human happiness and human flourishing. And in the spiritual realm, friendships are important to spiritual health. And I would argue that's why Solomon devotes so much time and attention in the book of Proverbs to teaching us how to maximize and not mess up our friendships, because he knows what's at stake: happiness and spiritual growth. So he goes to great pains to pepper the book of Proverbs with statements about friendship. And there are two ideas we're going to explore tonight in the realm of friendship. Last week we looked at how do you pick your friends, who should be in your crew, who should not be in your crew. Well, tonight we're going to move forward and we're going to look at how do you maximize the friendships you have, and how do you not mess up the friendships that you have. And the reason this is worth our time tonight is very simple. Healthy friendships matter because God, in part, He designed friendships for human happiness. He wants you and your friends to experience the joy of relationship, and He wants you to experience the positive influence it has on your spiritual growth. So if you want to accelerate your spiritual growth, if you want to up your happiness game, then it's well worth your time to consider, what does wisdom have to say about who I'm meant to be as a friend? So we're going to look at it in these two categories. I'm going to call it handshakes and hand grenades. Handshakes and hand grenades. So you know what a handshake is, right? It's sort of a symbol of warmth. Typically it signifies some level of friendship. And so just like a handshake communicates friendliness, so in our relational handshake lingo tonight, handshakes are those activities that cause friendship to grow and flourish, right? My handshake with you signifies some form of positive relationship, usually. Well, in the text, these handshakes are the activities that will promote and prosper your relationships. Now, conversely, we got hand grenades. And just like in real life, a hand grenade is a weapon that you toss, pull the pin, lob it, and then it blows up and kills anybody within reach. There are lots of relational hand grenades, and Solomon's going to talk about them. These are the behaviors that devastate and destroy human relationships. They explode in friendships, and they blast everyone to bits. So we're going to look at the handshakes on the positive side and the hand grenades on the negative side, so you'll be armed in both ways to both maximize friendship and not mess it up. Let's start by looking at the handshakes. These are the relational ingredients that promote healthy, vibrant friendship. So if you want to maximize your friendships, right? If you want to derive the greatest happiness, the greatest fruitfulness from your relationships, then these are 3 active ingredients you very much want in your friendships. Handshake number 1. Be a truth teller. Be a truth teller. And I say that because honest words promote vibrant friendship. Honest words promote vibrant friendship. That's Proverbs 27. Look at verses 5 and 6. Better is open rebuke than love that is concealed. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. Well, the first thing I want you to see is the word better. Right? Better is. And that word better tells you this is an evaluation proverb, which is a category of proverbs where Solomon says, hey, this thing is superior to this thing. I want you to know what is the best and what is better. And he says, in this case, the superior thing is open rebuke. Now, nobody thinks open rebuke is a good thing, except Solomon says, actually, it's a better thing than the other thing, which is love that's concealed. An open rebuke is a personal correction, but it's personal correction that's honest, that's frank, that's loving, that's direct. And in this proverb, it's in stark contrast to love that is hidden or concealed, which means, oh, the person loves you, but they will not tell you the things you really need to hear because they don't want to upset you or offend you, so they just keep it inside and you do not benefit from it. And for whatever reason, this friend who does probably like you, maybe love you in the friendship way, is timid to tell you what you need to hear. Maybe they're afraid you're not going to be able to receive it. Maybe they're afraid it'll ruin the friendship. Maybe they're afraid that they'll lose your kind of affection and favor, and so they can't bear to do that. So they kind of love themselves more than you, and they just say, I'm not going to mention it. But when verse 5 happens, or rather the love that is concealed, when the love that is concealed happens, you, as the person who does not receive that honest word, the truth that you need, you suffer for it, right? Let's say this. Imagine with me. Let's say you're a grumbler. You complain about things, right? It's just a sin in your life. You grumble about your boss. You grumble about your work schedule. You grumble about your pay. Maybe you don't grumble. Maybe you got a mouth problem. You like to curse. It comes out in basketball, at work, in traffic. Every so often you're going to say, oh my, G-O-D. Or maybe you're a gossip. Different kind of mouth problem, right? You talk about other people. Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what she did? Oh, I heard of this about them. And so here's the deal. Maybe you're one of those and your friend observes this behavior and your friend says, I know this is not good. I know this is not healthy behavior. I should say something to you in the spirit of Matthew 18:15. I should say, hey, listen, I want to bring this to your attention. I love you. I care about you. I've noticed this pattern in your life and it's not good. It's sinful. And so because it's harming you and other people, I want to bring it to your attention so that you can turn from this thing. And even though they know that's what they ought to do as a loving brother or sister, even though they know that would promote your spiritual growth, you know what they don't do? They don't tell you because they don't want to offend you. Or maybe they've tried to tell you in the past and you got upset, you bristled. And so they're like, he or she won't even take this. So they don't say the truth. They're not willing to risk your displeasure. Their love won't take them that far. And so when what you need the most is honest words, what they give you is hidden love. And so, of course, the lesson is, listen, if you want your friends to treat you in that manner, you also need to be that kind of a friend. You want truth-telling friends, you got to be a truth teller yourself. And look at verse 6. Solomon's going to expand on it. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. And as I studied this verse, I discovered something very interesting. Look at that word friend. That's not the normal word for friend. That word in this verse 6, friend, literally means one who loves. There's a different word that speaks of one who is relationally close to you. That's not this word. This word is one who loves, not romantic. This is relational. Not romantic. This is friendship love. Faithful are the wounds of one who loves you. That's a truth teller, right? And if you can look in your own life, easy test. You want to know which friends genuinely love you according to the Bible? Who's a truth teller? Who's willing to tell you those uncomfortable truths that are painful but help you grow? Right? That's what Solomon says you want to be. That's the right kind of friend. That's a faithful friend. They will say things that sting your heart but ultimately help your heart. And of course, when I say they're a truth teller, to go in the terms of last week, this would be Mr. Truth and Love. He says the hard thing, but he does it in a gracious way, a kind way, a loving way, a patient way. This is not angry. This is not harsh. This is not critical. This is, hey man, I care about you, but I've seen this in your life. I don't know that you're aware, so in love, I want to tell you this thing is happening, and it's really not going to produce good results for you. You got to abandon this thing. That's truth and love. That's being a truth teller. And so my guess is there are some of you, maybe many of you in this room, who you've held your tongue when you should have spoken. Maybe there's a conversation you know you need to have with somebody where they need to hear a vital spiritual truth, but for fear of man, for fear of upsetting them, for fear of whatever, you just have not said a word. And you've not been a truth teller to that friend. But they need to hear what you have to say. And I don't mean a rebuke. I mean a loving, gracious, let me bring this to your attention because this is a hurtful thing that you're doing. So you need to be a truth teller. And I would encourage you, think about it. Is there that person in your life that you know you have withheld this kind of loving truth from? Because Solomon would say, if you're the friend according to verse 6 who loves, one who loves, love compels you to have that conversation. So you want to be a truth teller. You want to maximize your relationship. You want to have the healthiest, best relationship possible. You want to boost their spiritual growth and your spiritual growth. Step number 1, you want to be a truth teller. Step number 2, the second relational handshake, you want to be a loyal lover. And I do not mean romantic love here. You want to be a loyal lover, but that's friendship. That is having the kind of love that real friends have for one another, sort of in the spirit of what we just looked at in Proverbs 27:6. Loyal love fosters friendship. Loyal love fosters friendship. Proverbs 26. This is where I get this idea. Go to Proverbs 20, verse 6. Many a man proclaims his own loyalty, but who can find a trustworthy man? Well, the obvious rhetorical question or answer is nobody. They're so hard to find. And interestingly enough, that word loyalty, many a man proclaims his own loyalty, that's the same word in the original language for loyal love. And that's the word that the ESV will call it steadfast love. Loyal love, steadfast love. That is the word used to describe God's faithful covenant love for Israel in the Old Testament, his chesed. So the same faithful, unbreakable, unshakable love that God has for Israel is used in this context, in a man context. Humans, says many a man says, oh, I got you, I love you, I care for you, I'm here for you, depend on me. But Solomon says, yeah, lots of people say that. Very few live that out. They're really empty words, unfortunately. So they say, man, I'm loyal. But they're really not loyal when it counts. But see, the positive side of that, we're going to find in Proverbs 17:17. Go back a few pages to Proverbs 17:17. Here's where a loyal lover is on full display. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. And of course, that first half of the verse is what you want to think about right now. A friend loves at all times. And that phrase, at all times, is emphatic in the original language. So it really says this, at all times, a friend loves. When it's convenient, when it's not. When it's easy, when it's not. When it's comfortable, when it's not. A friend will still love you. A friend who's true, the friend of Proverbs 17:17, the loyal lover, he won't ghost you, he won't abandon you, he won't turn on you. Because loyal love has no conditions, no qualifications, and no limitations. And so no wonder Solomon says, many a man proclaims his own loyalty, but who can find a trustworthy man? Because that kind of love is rare. Very rare. And I would venture to say that many of you in this room know the pain of its opposite, disloyal love. Right? I bet every one of you has experienced disloyal love. People that you thought were your friends, and yet they proved that they were not. Because they said they were your friends, and then you found out they were talking behind your back. Or they said that they were your friend, and then when your life experiences some real trial, man, they fade away and disappear. Or they say that they're your friend, but as soon as he gets a girlfriend, he doesn't call you anymore. Or as soon as somebody more popular hits the scene, they don't want to hang out with you anymore because this other person offers greater benefit. So they just kind of forget about you. See, that's the negative side of this loyal love. That's disloyal love. But the positive side is the loyal love endures. The friend who is a real friend is the friend who will stand with you, according to Proverbs 17:17, at all times. And then the latter half of the verse, as a brother is born for adversity, and the idea is, sticks with you when things are really tough. And a real friend will stick with you when things get really tough. Little example, you got car trouble, right? You can't make it to church. So you call your friend, hey, will you bring me to church? Absolutely, I got you. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Take you home too. No worries. Or you're going through the heartache of a breakup, right? And you just need somebody to be there with you, to listen to you, to commiserate with you, to listen to you cry, put a hand on your shoulder, pray for you. You need that. And you know what? A real friend, she's there. Not even a question. She's going to be there for that. So loyal love shines the brightest when the times are darkest. That's how you know this friend is a loyal lover. Because when your life is the hardest, guess who's still here? That loyal friend. I love how one commentator summarizes Proverbs 17:17. The text is not about gaining a stalwart friend, meaning loyal and faithful. It is not about gaining a stalwart friend. It is about being one. See, the emphasis of Proverbs 17:17 is teaching you how to be a loyal lover. That friendship love endures at all times, especially when it's tough. If you want to build a friendship that lasts, you've got to be a loyal lover. If you want a friendship that maximizes your personal happiness, and I don't mean selfishly, but that helps you derive the greatest joy from that friendship, and if you want a friendship that also promotes the most spiritual growth for you and that person, what you must be is a loyal lover. You got to be a truth teller. You got to be a loyal lover. Number 3, third relational handshake. You got to be a close connector. A close connector. Go right in your Bible, Proverbs 27, verse 17. Proverbs 27:17. This is where I get the notion of being a close connector. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And the emphasis, the thrust of this verse is, it is vitally important to have real-time, real-life, up-close and personal interactions with your friends. That's why I've called it a close connector, because close contact is required for relational sharpening. I mean, the metaphor he employs here is very basic, right? If you're going to sharpen a metal blade, you rub it and you cause friction with another metal object. That's how you sharpen a blade, a sword, a plow. So in the same way that you would sharpen a metal object by pressing another metal thing against it to rub off the rough edges, so too in human relationships is the Christian refined and corrected and sharpened through that close, intimate, personal contact. And the way that happens is not complex. It's super basic. Intentional conversation. It happens through vulnerable disclosure. Hey, I'm willing to tell you what's really going on in my life. I don't have to put on a mask anymore. It looks like something like, hey, let's grab coffee. Let's talk. Let's have dinner. And then over dinner, you're sharing, this is what God's been teaching me in my life. Man, this is where I'm really being challenged and encouraged. This is where I'm wrestling. And it's in that kind of life-on-life, up-close, real-time interaction that if you're doing it in a Christian way, you're sharpening them and they're sharpening you. And it all makes us better Christians. And of course, it makes us better friends. And by the way, sort of incidentally, this text deals a death blow to the isolated Christian. To the person who says, I'm a Christian, but I can stay at home and burrow myself in my room and watch TV and be on Netflix all day. I don't need interactions with Christian. I can do church online. I'm a Christian. I have a good relationship with Jesus. I really don't need you because I like my me time, but I can still be good. This verse says, no, you can't. You can't have any relational sharpening in isolation. See, this verse makes the isolated Christian life unthinkable because mutual sharpening doesn't happen in isolation. That's why Proverbs 13:20 says, he who walks with wise men will be wise, because you need other wise men. That's why Solomon will say in Ecclesiastes 4:9, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. So the idea is this is a communal thing. I need you, but you need me. And that's how we sharpen one another. And then the commentator John Kitchen, he expresses it very well. No man can be his best or reach the heights God intends for him without those blessed friends who comfort, provoke, challenge, rebuke, chide, affirm, stimulate, and encourage until his thinking is clear, his wisdom mature, his purpose refined, and his faculties sharp. Did you get that? That close connection will look like comforting, provoking, challenging, rebuking, chiding, affirming, stimulating, encouraging. And the end result is you look more like Jesus, and then I look more like Jesus, and we are knitted together in love. So let me ask you, how are you sharpening your friends? How have you been a sharpener of your friends? In what ways is your life-on-life contact with them making that person more like Jesus Christ? Because you ought to be able to say, I'm not the cause of it, but I think it's true that as I spend time with this person or that person, I'm helping refine and polish and make this person the smoothest and the best for the sake of Jesus Christ. I'm a person sharpener because I'm a close connector. And I'm going to say, if you want that, and you say, oh, yeah, I want to be a person sharpener, I want to be a close connector. And you're also saying, but I need those influences in my life. I need to be sharpened. Maybe I've tried to do it alone. Or maybe I've tried to keep the church at a distance that's comfortable for me without really getting up close and personal where we're rubbing shoulders and there's contact. Maybe I've tried to have a little bit of my space, a little me time. But you're realizing that what you need is close connection within the body of Jesus Christ. If you really want that, you really want to accelerate that, you want to put it in overdrive, what you need is what the Bible calls discipleship. Biblical discipleship is the most potent form of sharpening. That's where iron and iron really rub and each is sharpened. And what that looks like is truth and life shared in the context of a personal relationship. Not impersonal, it is personal, it's relationship. I'm sharing truth, I'm sharing my life, and we're both growing in Christ. And it looks like somebody who's a little bit more mature in the faith with somebody who's a little bit less mature in the faith. And they spend time together talking about life, talking about the Bible, and helping each other grow. And that is the most potent form of person sharpening. So if you want that in your life and you're realizing, I don't have God's tailor-made solution for self-sharpening, for really others sharpening, then what you need is biblical discipleship. Right? You need this group, right? You need to be here in church. You need these people. But the most accelerated form, where the greatest growth potential lies, is biblical discipleship. And if you say, I want that, and some of you have that, and I think your testimony, and I hope your testimony would be, oh man, I'm growing, and this is awesome. But some of you might say, I don't have it. I don't have that experience. It's not present in my life. Then what you need is to find that right person who can be a soul sharpener for you. Right? And maybe you talk to your leader, you say, hey, I want this. I don't have that thing he talked about, but I desire it. Talk to me, because this will help catapult you forward in growth. Finding that close connection with another soul sharpener. So this is how we become a person who maximizes friendship. You're a truth teller, a loyal lover, you're a close connector. Those are the things, the essential ingredients that will make your friendships so satisfying and so spiritually productive. But that's only half of the equation. Because Solomon has a lot to say about how to mess up your relationships. See, it's not all handshakes, it's often hand grenades. And a hand grenade relationally is some sort of activity where you functionally pull the pin, you lob it into the room, and in seconds your relationship is blown to bits because you just did or said something that God says, do not do that. But you did it. So what I want and what Solomon wants is for you to be aware of these behaviors so that you can avoid them. And so that you can be aware of these behaviors and you can survey your life and say, do I have people in my life that do this to me? Am I doing it and am I receiving it? Because if I'm receiving it, that is a bad friendship. Corrections need to happen for the glory of God. So there are 3 hand grenades you need to be aware of. Number 1, hand grenade number 1. You want to mess up a relationship? You want to take a good thing and make it a broken thing? Be a space invader. Be a space invader. And that has nothing to do with aliens. That has everything to do with Proverbs 25:17. Go to Proverbs 25:17. Let your foot rarely be in your neighbor's house, or he will become weary of you and hate you. Listen, if you want to pull the pin, roll that grenade into the room of your friendship and watch everything blow up, it's very simple. Don't have any boundaries. Don't have any limitations. Be the kind of person who's so needy, so invasive, so pervasive that when your friends see you, they're actually ducking around the corner so you don't spot them because then, oh boy, here he comes again. Oh great, here she is. You don't want to be a space invader because here's the deal about a space invader. They're not damaging because the space invader is in your life sometimes. The space invader is damaging and oh so frustrating because he or she is in your life all the time. And that looks like different things. Let me give you a few ways you can be a space invader. See, you got this friend. She's a bit needy. She's always calling you at work. You got work to do, but then your phone is buzzing. And then you answer, hey, what's up? Everything okay? Yeah, how's your day going? And you're like, what? I got work to do. I got a project. But she wants to talk for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. Why? I don't know. She's bored. She doesn't have anything going on in life. She's needy. I have no idea. But she's a space invader. You need to work. And I'm not saying it's bad to have friendships and phone calls, but this person's always calling you, always interrupting things that you need to do. Or maybe this is the guy who he doesn't tell you he's coming over. You just find out because you hear the door. Who's that? And then you go and like, hey man, I'm here. What's up? And he just blows right by you. He's coming into your apartment. He's jumping on the couch. He's got his feet up on your, like whatever you put in the middle. I guess it's called a table. Ottoman? I was going to say it, but that sounds Turkish. I thought, nah. So, you know what Mr. Space Invader does? He comes into your house. You're doing stuff, right? So you don't want to be rude. You don't say like, hey, get out. You're like, hey, what brought you here? You didn't text me, you didn't call me, you didn't ask me, you're just here. Well, yeah, and now you know what? He's going to be here for the next 3 hours because this guy's a space invader and he has no limits. My sister Ashley was telling me the other day, she's in Chicago, she's a mom of 6. She said, oh yeah, I have a friend like that. I was watching her 2.5-year-old yesterday. She comes over to pick up her child. I said, hi, I've got some stuff I got to do. She says, great. She stayed for 3 hours. My sister had work to do, and this lady's just chatting. And my sister's a very sweet lady, so she didn't say, will you please go home? But you want to say that with the space invader because he or she has no limits. And it's very frustrating when the space invader's in your life because he or she does not come to help, does not come to serve. He or she comes to have his needs met. And this space invader is very self-focused. And one way this space invasion looks, it's not just the physical dimension. It's also like personal stuff. He's giving you advice all the time. You didn't ask for advice, but I'm telling you how to live your life. Yeah, you shouldn't get those shoes. You should have gotten the Adidas, Nike's old school. Hey, by the way, those pants don't look good on you. You know, that girl's not good for you. And you know what? I really think you shouldn't live with your parents. Yeah, I don't like your job either. You probably deserve better. You're like, dude, I didn't ask. But he's always thinking he knows what you need to do in your life. And so he doesn't just tell you. Sometimes he does it in a bossy way, a judgmental way. And so as opposed to you being helped by this guy's wisdom, you're just annoyed. You didn't want his advice, but he offers it for free. Or maybe the space invader is invading emotionally. And so let's say this is a girl who's always got drama. And so you know what? She shows up and she's emotionally vomiting everywhere. Problems, problems, problems. And it's not like she said, like, hey, can you help me with it? It's always the case. This is a pattern, listen, we all have problems and we all want to call that trusted friend and say, hey, help me think about this. I got some real pain going on. I need a loving, loyal friend. Everybody wants that. That's not who this is. This is always happening with the space invader. Space invader is always doing stuff like this. It is who the person is, not periodic. It's perpetual. And then Solomon says, let me tell you what happens in your relationship. I will forecast your future. At the end of verse 17, if you're a space invader, this is the inevitable result. He will become weary of you and hate you. That word weary, it means to be stuffed, to be satisfied, to have enough. So it's a good thing. But in this context, it's a bad thing. It has a darker shade of meaning. In this context, this word weary means you are so full, you're nauseous. Any of you like feeling nauseous? It's like the worst thing ever. I don't know how women have babies. It's so unpleasant. So that's what it's like when you have Mr. Space Invader. The result he produces in your friendship is you are so nauseous, you want to vomit him out. You want to get him out of your system so you feel better. And it's not because you're a bad person. It's because the Space Invader is invasive. And it is inevitable that you'll feel nauseous with this person. So the truth is, don't be a space invader. Obviously, you don't like this person in your life, but maybe you're this person. I don't know, are you this person? I mean, I shared last week, I've been that person before. It's embarrassing. So you ought to spend time with your friends. You ought to love your friends. You ought to care about your friends. You ought to ask how they're doing. You ought to have contact with your friends. But you don't need to have perpetual contact with your friends. Right? There ought to be a little bit of space between you and your friends. And maybe if you're saying, I think I could be a space invader, you ought to find your truth teller friend. And you need to say, hey, I need you to be honest with me. Is that me? Am I overbearing? And because you have a truth-telling friend, because you have good friends, that guy, that girl, if it's you, is going to say, yeah, it is. And I've been meaning to talk about that with you. And you say, oh my goodness, please forgive me. I want to be a better friend. So there's another hand grenade, right? Maybe you don't have a space invader, but there's another hand grenade that's very common, very destructive. Don't be a sweet talker. Don't be a sweet talker. And I'm not saying don't be charming. Charm is wonderful. I'm not saying don't be winsome, don't be pleasant, don't be agreeable. Be all of those things. Being a sweet talker has nothing to do with charm and everything to do with flattery. You guys like flattery? I mean, hey, listen, it's nice for someone to flatter you. And then flattery is that sickly sweet speech that is totally self-serving, where I stroke your ego and I say, oh man, you look so good in those shoes. And yeah, you're just so smart. How'd you get so smart? And you just look so composed. And you know, you always look so pretty in that dress. And the way you do your hair, wow. And you just smell so good. And man, I really wish I could be more like you. And you're like, oh yeah, well, I think so too. And you love it. Flattery feels good until you realize what's behind it. Flattery says, I want to butter you up like a roll so I can eat you. I want something from you. That's a Southernism. Flattery is inherently self-serving. I will tell you what you want to hear so I can get from you what I want to get. I don't care about you. You are a means to an end, my end. Proverbs 26:28. A lying tongue hates those it crushes, and a flattering mouth works ruin. See, this is what happens with sweet talkers. I don't mean winsome people. I mean flatterers. A flattering mouth works ruin. Flattery is not noble. Flattery is not lovely. Flattery is not helpful. It is deceptive, selfish, and insincere. Flattery is different than complimenting. Complimenting says, hey, I see something good about you. I want to highlight it. Really appreciate how consistent you are to our Bible study. Really appreciate that you're such an encourager. I really appreciate how you always look so put together. Everything you wear matches. I just look like a mess, but you look great. That's sincere. You don't want anything other than just to make them feel good by acknowledging a real positive element of who they are. Flattery says, I want something from you. You got a nice lake house and a boat, so I'm going to be real kind to you. And I'm going to say, oh man, you're such a nice guy. You're so friendly. Everybody likes you. What you want is for him to invite you to the lake. I'm not saying things that are truthful. I just want something from you. And you know, Proverbs says this is what will happen. Your sweet speech will work ruin. That word ruin means calamity. It has the verbal idea is shoving somebody to the ground to hurt them. That's what flattery does. I'm not offering you a helping hand. I am pushing you to the ground, and you're going to skin your knees and bruise your palms, and you're going to get hurt, but I'm not. Proverbs 29:5 gives us a little bit more insight into the flatterer. What motivates a flatterer? What else is going on behind these sweet words? A man who flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his steps. Spreading a net, that's hunting. Hunters use nets to catch birds, and then they kill the birds that they just caught. Well, here's the deal with flattery. The guy or the girl sweet-talking you, and I don't mean just romantically, I mean with anything. The guy or the girl flattering you is a hunter, and guess who's the prey? You. And no hunter wants good things for the animal. They want to kill the animal, eat the animal, sell the animal. They want benefit from the animal. You are the prey of the flatterer. That's not a privileged position. That's dangerous. And let me give you a very visible, visceral, powerful illustration of flattery in Proverbs in the first few chapters. Go to Proverbs 2:16 or just write this down. One of the most dangerous, pernicious illustrations of flattery in Proverbs is the smooth tongue of the seductive woman. This is the immoral woman who wants your body. Proverbs 2:16. Here is what wisdom does. It is designed to deliver you from the strange woman. That's just basically an immoral woman. From the adulterer who flatters with her words. Go forward to Proverbs chapter 5. Proverbs 5:3-4, Solomon says again, for the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and smoother than oil in her speech is her speech, but in the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a double-edged sword. But that's not all he has to say. Proverbs 7:21. With her many persuasions, she entices him. With her flattering lips, she seduces him. She works hard to use sweet speech and smooth words to get what she wants from him. And so the question is, what happens to the guy who gives in to her sexual advances? Verse 23 of chapter 7 tells you the end. Until an arrow pierces through his liver, which is a killing blow, as a bird hastens to the snare, which is a trap, so he, the guy who gives in, does not know that it will cost him his life. That's relational ruin, reputational ruin, physical ruin, social ruin, spiritual ruin. That's just one example. The girl who flatters in the book of Proverbs, it was written to men, so it's a female. He's saying, beware of this. Ladies, obviously it works in reverse. The flattery is designed to get something from you that will hurt you. And I think we all know guys can be sweet talkers, girls can be sweet talkers. But ladies, let me just address you for the moment. If you have a sweet talking guy in your life, and I'm not saying a guy who's kind or a guy who's complimentary, I'm talking about a sweet talker. You know what flattery is. You're smart enough. If you have a flatterer in your life, what he wants is to take something from you. Most probably, if he's flattering you, he wants your body. And he wants to take from you in the bedroom what you have no right to give him ever, unless he's your husband. So if you have a sweet talker in your life, a flatterer in your life, what you need to do is delete his number, block him on Instagram, and never talk to him again. Because he is a hunter, and you are the prey. You have a flatterer in your life, cut him out. Gentlemen, of course it works in reverse. Usually guys are the predators here, not ladies. Run from flatterers. Compliments are good. Encouragements are good. Compliment your friends. Encourage your friends. Do not flatter your friends, because that tells me you want something from them. And you're willing to take advantage of them by stroking their ego. Solomon says, do not be a sweet talker. One more relational hand grenade. This one will devastate your friendships if you are a conflict causer. If you are a conflict causer, you will be a human wrecking ball to your friendships. And you will go through friends one after the next because of your bad behavior. Don't be a conflict causer. And listen, I know that conflict is inevitable in relationships, right? If you got a friend, you got a girlfriend, especially you got a spouse, but we're talking about friendship. In friendship, especially the closer you get, there will be conflict. There's always going to be a careless word. There's always going to be an insensitive comment. There's always going to be some irritable moment, some unkind word, some selfish action. These exist because relationships are built off of two sinners. It's not if conflict occurs that is that question. It's how are you going to handle the conflict? Because let me show you how a conflict causer handles these things that cause squabbles among friends. Proverbs 10:12. Go to Proverbs 10:12. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all transgressions. So ideally, the way you handle conflict is that latter half. Love covers all transgressions. How many? Not some, not just the light ones, covers all transgressions. And that word cover has the idea of concealing, of hiding. You don't make it public and display it. Instead, what you do is you don't make a big deal of it. Yeah, you can address the person because it was a sin, but what the idea is forgiveness. I choose to forgive you. I don't want to make a big deal of this. I'm certainly not going to tell other people about it. So that's how you handle conflict. But that's not how a conflict causer handles conflict. See, what the conflict causer does is the first half. The conflict causer holds on to pain. They're a pain grabber. You hurt me, I am going to hold on to my pain, and I'm going to get you back. You cause me pain, I'm going to cause you pain. I'm not going to forget what you did to me. I'm not going to move on. I'm going to nurse this wound until I seethe with anger. That's the first half of verse 12. Hatred stirs up strife. Let me give you a visual picture of this. Think arguments, think fights, think bitter disagreements. Think hurt feelings and raised voices and bulging veins and harsh words. Think cold shoulders and icy tones and avoidance behavior. Conflict causers stir all of that. They got no time for forgiveness. They are way too busy remembering what you did to them. Conflict causers are the second half of Proverbs 17:9. Go to Proverbs 17:9. He who conceals a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. He who conceals a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates intimate friends. You see, a conflict causer is not a love seeker. A conflict causer is a vengeance seeker. I want justice because of what you did to me. And I will punish you. I will find a way to punish you. And the way of verse 9 is he will repeat a matter, which has the idea of I'm going to bring it up to somebody else and gossip about you. I'm going to bring this thing up. I'm not forgetting it. And I'm going to talk about it, just not with you. I'm going to talk about it with somebody else who's not involved. And I'm going to ruin your reputation. See, conflict causers never took to heart the lesson of Proverbs 17:14. The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so abandon the quarrel before it breaks out. Which says, listen, if you just avoid the conflict, it won't explode and get worse. But conflict causers are not quarrel abandoners. They're quarrel igniters. I want to start a fight because that's how I get back at you. And I will hurt you because you hurt me. Don't think I'm going to forgive you that easily. But the problem is, envision your friendship as a dam. It's only constructed to sustain a certain level of conflict pressure. But if the pressure gets too severe, the dam of your relationship will burst. There's always a breaking point. That's why Proverbs 17:14 says, don't let it get advanced so you don't ever have to find out the breaking point. That really happened in Johnston, Pennsylvania, 1889. A really, really strong storm swept through the area. Unusually strong and heavy rains. Rain was so hard, water levels in the South Fork Dam rose to dangerous heights. The more water means more pressure against the dam walls. They did not build the dam to sustain that level of pressure. So the added water pushed so hard against those dam walls that it finally burst. And when the dam burst, 20 million gallons of water burst forward in a wall of liquid death that killed 2,000 people. 2,000 people died that day because the dam could not hold. That is what conflict causers are like. That's what he does to a friendship. If you're a conflict causer, you will blast friendships to the ground and damage will occur. So obviously you don't want to be a conflict causer. You don't want a conflict causer in your life. What you want for you and for this person is you want to learn how to handle conflict biblically. And that means you have to learn to forgive. What you must do is absorb the injury and the offense. Swallow your pride. Release your right to punish the offender. And just give it to God. Make a conscious choice to say, I will forgive you, even if you don't want my forgiveness. I'm going to forgive you. Doesn't mean our relationship is restored. It just means I'm not going to hold on to the bitterness. I'm not going to be poisoned by that pill. So if you want help releasing the debt, remember how many sins you've committed against Jesus Christ. Remember the mountain of your transgression that Jesus erased at the cross. And then out of the deep well of forgiveness, offer forgiveness. You receive mercy, now give mercy. You don't have to be a conflict causer. You can be a mercy extender. And then you will keep that friendship alive. And then all of the disagreements, the squabbles, the petty irritations or the problems in your friendships can be resolved right there. They never have to grow out of proportion. They never have to ruin a friendship. Most can just be handled at the very beginning. So it doesn't have to escalate to the level of dam breaking. Listen, friendships are essential to human life. If you want to be happy, friendships are part of the equation. You want to grow spiritually, friendships are part of the equation. But I think you realize you're not a perfect friend. You're never going to be the perfect friend. But you also have never found a perfect friend. Even the best people you know are not perfect. But there actually was one. There was one who was perfect. And there is one, present tense, is one who is a perfect friend. Of course, he's not just human like us. He's God and man. He's Jesus Christ. And he is the friend that you could not perfectly be. He is and was and will be that perfect friend. Let me tell you about this Jesus. See, he is a truth teller. He loves us enough to indict us for our sin and warn us of judgment to come. But he's also a loyal lover, and nobody has ever loved like Jesus. He loved us so much that while we were yet sinners, he went to the cross to take the wrath of God that we deserved. He loved us so much that he lived a perfect life, fully obeying all of God's laws, and yet still was willing to die for a world of rebel sinners, so that he might satisfy the demands of God's justice, so that you could be forgiven. He was crushed for our transgressions, so that you might be eternally healed. Jesus was also a close connector. Can you imagine? He lived in heaven forever, but he became a man and he dwelt on earth and he lived with us. And he did it so that he could humble himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. And even now, as a close connector, he lives in us. If you're saved, Jesus lives in you. He takes up residence in you through the person of the Holy Spirit. So if you repented, if you placed your faith in Jesus Christ, he's in you. And you can't be more of a close connector than Jesus. And there is no friend like Jesus. He is the friend of sinners. And most of you, I think, know Jesus as your Savior and your eternal friend. But if you do not know Jesus as that friend, today you must come to him. You will be disappointed in this world. You will not be disappointed in Jesus Christ. You must flee from your sin. You must submit your life to Christ. You must come and thrust yourself at his feet and plead with him, Jesus, have mercy on me, a sinner. And you must trust in him alone and say, I know that you have mercy for sinners like me. And Jesus will say, if you're true in your heart and eager to repent, Jesus will say, I do have mercy for you. And your sins shall be as white as snow, because I will wash them. And then you will know the greatest friend the world has ever known. Why don't you pray with me? Father, we thank you. We do want to be better friends. And we recognize that friendship is a gift. And even the guys and the girls in this room and outside this room that we have as our cherished friends, they're a gift. But Lord, sometimes we don't act like we value that gift because sometimes we do the bad behaviors that Solomon talks about. And many times we receive the bad behaviors that Solomon talks about. And so, Father, I would plead with you, work in our hearts, so change us that we become those who maximize friendships for the glory of God and we do not mess them up. I pray that we would imitate the one true friend, Jesus Christ. And that again, if there are any in this room who do not know Christ, that today would be the day they surrender their life to Jesus Christ in repentance and faith. Because there never has been a friend like Jesus. We are so thankful for him. We ask this all in his name. Amen.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to our Redeemer YouTube channel. If this is helpful for you, please make sure that you like this video, smash the subscribe button, and hit that bell icon. It will help us reach more people with biblical truth. Thank you so much.